Welcome to the Truman Charities Podcast, a community of caring. I am Jamie Truman, your host. I'm one of the co-founders of Truman Charities. Our organization has raised over $1 million for several different charities as we share our message of helping others and paying it forward. We plan to continue to educate our audience on the culture of giving. On this podcast, I will interview fellow charity founders, volunteers, sponsors, and other people in the community who will share their stories. You will hear and be inspired by their selflessness and passion for helping others. Welcome to another episode of the Truman Charities Podcast. My guest today is Amy Javaid, and Amy offers 20 years of experience working with nonprofits in both the U.S. and internationally. And after 4 years at a wider circle whose mission is to end poverty, Amy became the president and CEO in July 2021. Amy, how are you today?
I am very well. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you on. So, I spoke a little bit earlier and was talking to you about one of our board members, Rob Mercer, and he brought your organization to us and was talking so highly about you guys. In one of our previous happy hours that we had, we ended up doing a winter coat drive for you guys. And everybody brought in, really nice jackets that they're just no longer using or their kids outgrew. We'll talk a little bit more about exactly how people can help your organization and kind of your mission. But before that, Amy, I want to learn a little bit about you. I want to know your story and why you decided to work with a wider circle and ultimately become the CEO.
Sure. So I would say, as you mentioned in the brief intro, my career path has always been with nonprofits, and particularly nonprofits that work with highly vulnerable populations. So from the time I was even in high school, working with people for whom English was not their primary language, working with folks who were struggling with literacy. When I was in college, I did a significant amount of community service and really worked with partners in that college town to talk about food waste and how could we better get sort of leftover prepared foods to people who are hungry. So as I began to look at my professional career path by really figuring out how to integrate sort of nonprofits, social justice, and sort of recognizing my own privilege, figuring out ways that I could support others in their journey. So the early positions that I took were in the field called development consulting, which was frankly a field I didn't even know existed, but was frankly the opportunity to work with an array of nonprofits overseas on everything from their management, governance, fundraising, strategic planning, but really helping ensure that they could continue to stay open and offer the services that the community most needed. But doing so as kind of a stable and sustainable organization. And in many cases, the assignments that I had were funded by multilateral funding institutions, USAID, the World Bank, places like that. And I would go on assignment and work with nonprofits for multiple weeks and usually back and forth over a series of years to work on sustainability. And many of the groups I worked with safe birth, reproductive rights, women, for example, who had been attacked by acid, people impacted or infected by HIV and AIDS, including intravenous drug users, commercial sex workers, men who had sex with men, but really highly vulnerable and in many cases, highly stigmatized populations. And I did that for close to a decade and loved every second. And then I got to the moment where I wanted to have a family and realized that traveling 80% of my time and being a full-time mom here in the DC area was really challenging, and sort of shifted and did more consulting and helped folks write proposals for that same kind of work, but without me doing the traveling. And at a certain point, one of my children, her school was coming to a wider circle, and I offered to be a parent chaperone. And I came with her when she was in kindergarten and several of her classmates. And we learned about the mission and the work of this amazing organization. And truly, I was taken in. And so I really worked with that school to sort of be the liaison from the parents to coming here on a more regular basis with families. And then as my kids got older, I was sitting around a dining table. And at this point, they're both school age. And one of them said, I've decided something. And I said, okay. And the decision was that no one person can make a difference in this world. No one person can really change someone else's life. And it broke my heart. It was so disheartening to think that at that young age, they really believed they couldn't have an impact. And so I decided that instead of saying no, I would sort of show by action rather than words. And I would drop them at school. And then I would come in on my own, volunteer here at a wider circle. And again, was completely taken by, as much as anything, the approach, the compassionate, humane connection that the staff and volunteers shared with each other, but more importantly, with those that were being served here at the organization. And so not long into my volunteer tenure, someone said, would you be interested in a part-time job? I guess. Would you be interested in taking on a few more hours? I guess. Would you be interested in helping a department that just lost a staff member? I guess. And sort of one thing led to another, and it became this sort of perfect marriage in many ways of many of the skills and experiences that I had had previously, but recognizing the same issues and challenges that exist right here in my backyard. And so when the opportunity came and the founder decided to move on and form a more national level organization, I agreed to be the interim president and CEO. And then the organization went through a very extensive search process, in part recognizing that for 19 of our 20-year history, we had a founder, and really making sure that the legacy and the mission could truly be maintained. And so then last July, the board voted to have me be the second president and CEO of a wider circle. And it has been the most incredible and inspiring and sometimes overwhelming and daunting, but really fulfilling sort of next chapter for me professionally, but more importantly, a next chapter sort of for a wider circle in our quest to achieve our mission.
Now, when I go onto your website, you guys talk about how you have this holistic approach. Can you describe a little bit more about what that means?
Sure. So there are some really incredible organizations all across the greater DC area, and some deal with a specific issue like hunger or housing or a specific population like children or the elderly. And what we have found with those we serve is it's usually a multitude of issues that, including birth, generational poverty is a very real thing for so many in our community, that it's usually a rather complex sort of array of things that need to be supported and dealt with in someone's journey from experiencing poverty to experiencing self-sufficiency. And so part of our mission, being as broad as it is recognizing that when someone comes in our door, perhaps for the first time for clothing or for furniture, that's an opportunity to start a relationship, to better understand the variety of needs that those folks may have, and how we can really partner with them and walk beside them in service to help them achieve whatever the goals may be. And so we have sort of several different program realms, but each of them look at different timelines. For example, sleeping on a bed is a pretty basic need. It's hard to focus on most other things in life if you don't have a bed to sleep on or a table to eat at. So I consider that first service line of ours kind of our emergency or urgent need. Once that's filled, it allows people a chance to breathe a little bit, having a sense of place and a sense of home. Mm-hmm. And then they can begin to look at things like employment or education. And so we work with them to understand sort of their career aspirations and how we can, through coaching and through networking and emotional intelligence building or supporting that part of their journey. But oftentimes there are community level issues, access to employment, access to transportation, food insecurity, or living in a food desert. And so our third program is our neighborhood partnerships program. And that really looks at the long-term impacts of building a space that not only has skilled individuals, but opportunities and services and programs that you would expect in any other kind of more high-income neighborhood, and bringing those right into neighborhoods that are currently of need. And so really looking at that spectrum and recognizing integration of housing and food and employment, and all of those things need to be recognized, because it's hard for us as individuals to say, oh, just this one slice of life is important to me right now. All of it's important. All of it's integrated. Right. So when we serve, how can we keep that in mind?
I do like that. I'm listening to you, and I love how your organization is called A Wider Circle. And it's kind of like you guys are going full circle with everyone, right? So from the moment that they walk into the door, you guys, as you said, aren't just focusing on one aspect of their life. You want to make sure that they have a place where they feel secure and they feel home, and then helping them get back on their feet and getting them secure with a job. And if you go onto, and I'll tell all the people that are, our listeners, go onto the website. Your testimonials are so inspirational and very moving. There's a lot of them that are from veterans, and a lot of really heartbreaking ones from moms about how you guys have really been able to help them and their children, which is very touching. Is there anybody kind of in particular that sticks out to you when maybe you are volunteering, because you spent so much time before becoming CEO volunteering, that really kind of, sticks out to you of what a positive experience they've had with working with A Wider Circle?
Sure. I have two that I think highlight two different services. One, for a time, we had an office in the Shaw neighborhood of DC. And I had a client come in at one point, very concerned, had all of this pile of papers and didn't quite understand what was going on. But the top paper was an eviction notice. And the person explained that they had several deaths in their family, and they needed to give some of their very limited income to family or friends to help cover some of those costs. And the result is they fell behind. And so in reading through all the paperwork, one of the things I realized is the individual is going to be evicted for $59. $59.
Wow.
And the person kept saying, I'm trying to stay on top every time I have a few extra dollars. And the person said, I don't even know where to go. I can't afford an attorney. It's such a small amount. Is it even worth going to a legal clinic? And I was very clear in saying, look, we're not a legal clinic. But he said, I just need someone to listen. I just need someone to read through this with me and really help me understand. Should I be packing up my boxes? Should I be preparing to find some other place to live when this is the only home I've known for decades? And so we were able to work with that individual, understand the situation. And in that case, actually, we paid for the $59. And sort of that relief on that individual's face when they came in a week or so later. And he walked in and he said, I just want to say thank you. He said, I just feel stable. And he said, and after all of the tragedy that's been going on around me, to then have this thought of eviction was just too much. And to just know that moment for me, I don't have to worry about anymore. It's like you could see it on his face. And so then every time that I was in the office and he would come by, either walking on his bicycle, he'd do this huge wave to me in the window as his way of continuing to say thank you. So I think that is an example, a poignant example that sometimes a setback is really small in our eyes, but really almost insurmountable in the lives of those we serve. And how can we recognize that it's sometimes not $20 or $30 or $40,000 that is of issue? It's something very small, but it's something that someone just can't come up with. I think another example is several years ago, I met a client in our workforce development program who was trying to get back on his feet. And through our program, we helped him find employment. And he had some setbacks. He called a few years later saying, I finally got off the housing wait list. Can I come in for furniture? And I was so excited to see him. I happened to be in on the Saturday. He came for furniture. And fast forwarded about a month ago, I got a text from him and he said, I'm really struggling. Can you call me? And I called him, and we've been working through a few other issues that he's had. But one of the things he said to me in that most recent phone call is, I love the fact that I can always feel safe calling back. It never feels like a failure. It never feels like I'm being judged. It's like I'm calling a friend. And if we can provide that safe space, no matter the services, right? Obviously, I want our services to be of the highest quality, but to just have someone feel Like there's someone in their corner. There's someone who's going to listen and help them figure it out, even if we don't directly have the answer. Like for me, that's what it's all about.
Let's talk a little bit about how the community can help you guys. What can we do?
I like to say that everyone can do something, right? If I can come in with my children when they were kindergarten age and sort baby clothes, and we have some volunteers now where we're in their 80s who help polish and wipe dishes before they get packed for a family. Truly, everyone can do something. The pandemic has taught all of us that there are lots of closets and spare rooms and corners and attics that can be cleaned. So lots of people have gone down that route, and we still definitely accept a whole array of in-kind donations. We like all of our in-kind donations to be in what we call dignity conditions. So basically, you would be comfortable giving that item to your best friend or your favorite next door neighbor. And if you were comfortable doing that, then we would happily accept it to give it to another neighbor in the community who is in need. And we have folks who do coat drives, like you have mentioned. We have folks who do product drives for things like dental kits or laundry detergent. So things that you can't use food stamps to buy, but they can get very costly, especially in food deserts. We have multiple volunteer opportunities, things that people can do on site, either in our Silver Spring facility, in our Ward 8 DC office, or off site and then bring to us. We have people who offer coffees or things just where people can learn not just about our work, but about the issues. So there's really so many different ways that so many different ages and individuals or families or groups can engage in our work. We encourage folks not only to go on our website, but to connect with our volunteer team who can talk about specific projects or ongoing projects or one-time things. We also have many partnerships with corporations who will use it as a team building opportunity where a department or an entire company, depending on the size of the company, would come and volunteer for a few hours, learn about issues impacting neighbors in their community, and sometimes stay for a meal or another team meeting or things like that. But it's really a great opportunity for individuals, families, and groups to give back in whatever way works for them.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to kind of go back to the dinner table when your daughter was saying that not one person can help. Has she changed her mind since watching all of the work that you have done?
Well, I would say that I've done my best to convince her in both action and word. But I also think that at times those things are best learned through experience. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage many, many people to come to a wider circle and sort of experience it for themselves. But I really try and prompt conversations and use that as an opportunity to talk about change. So while I think that probably way deep in the back of her brain, she is convinced, she's not going to admit it because she's a teenager. So teenagers don't admit those things, right? Or admit that their parents are right. But I think listening to the questions she raises now, it's less about someone can or can't do something, but she might explore, well, why could this client of yours not get that job? Or why is it so difficult for this problem to be resolved? And so I feel like the lesson has become much more nuanced, and her willingness to figure out ways to be part of a solution is proof to me that she's at least learning the lesson, if not 100% of the way there yet.
I love it. Now, I know that you guys have some great upcoming events. For instance, June, you'll be Matching Gifts Month at a wider circle. Can you explain a little bit about that and some of your upcoming events that people can participate in?
Sure. So June is Matching Gifts Month. It's one of the times of year where we ask the community to give in whatever form they feel most comfortable. But it's a time where we have pledges from some of our generous community members to ensure that every dollar that a community member gives is doubled. So it's really a great opportunity where we raise general operating funds to cover the greatest need. And one of the reasons that for me that's particularly important is we get calls on a regular basis that are emergencies. We'll get a call from DC government, someone's home was destroyed by fire. by any chance do you have a bed? This person's escaping a very violent domestic violence situation. Do you have a sofa? And we want to always be able to say yes. And sometimes those things are big asks, right? The Friendly Garden apartment explosion here that was 6 or 8 weeks ago, 45 families lost everything.
Oh, wow.
And in an instant, we said, whatever you need, we're here. So it was making sure that we had that added inventory and we had those extra time and hours so we could support those families with a full household worth of new furniture, as well as professional clothing and other supplies, in partnership with others, of course, but being able to do that type of response in addition to our daily service are the kinds of things that we seek general operating support to do. So June is an opportunity where we raise general operating support and every dollar is doubled. As we go through the summer, we'll be doing some significant back to school activities. Last year, we put together backpacks and other school supplies for close to 1,000 children across the region. And we will do several back to school events. We're also hoping to do a back to school event that would include desks for children who may still need study spaces in their homes and or beds for children who do not have a safe place to sleep. And then as we get into the holiday season, we do significant things in terms of food and meals for Thanksgiving. And we do a very large holiday program called the Good Karma program. And as part of that, we collect between 8,000 and 10,000 toys, and we give those to DC Housing to give to all of the children who live in public housing who otherwise might not have an opportunity to celebrate in that way.
Wow, you guys are doing some amazing work. Can you tell us how we can follow you, your social media, your website, so everybody can know what you guys are up to and how they can help?
Absolutely. So we have our website, which is great, and we continue to try and update that and working on that. We are on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and we regularly put updates on both of those. We also have a mailing list. And there are options on that you can get things in hard copy, you can get things electronically. But one of the things that I really like to highlight is every Friday, we have something called, every first Friday of the month, we have something called First Fridays. It's a newsletter. We send it out via email to our mailing list, and it tells people what's going on. It highlights successes. It talks about upcoming events and volunteer opportunities, but it's a way to stay engaged and figure out how you in this month or over the next several months might want to plug into our work. It's also easy to share with a friend, and it's easy to sort of see the impact of your giving in whatever way you may have given, your time, your talent, your old clothes, your old dining room table, or funding. And so I definitely encourage folks to go onto our website. There is an opportunity where you can sign up for our mailing list and receive First Fridays. We talk about it as kind of good news in your inbox, the first Friday of every month, just as a way to stay connected that is a little bit more current, perhaps, than just reading an annual report. And then upcoming events, we also, our Ward 8 Hub office also has a Facebook page for events that are particular to that Washington Highlands community as well.
I love the monthly newsletter. There's nothing better than starting your month off with some positivity and how you can help your community and your neighbors. I
Great.
Love that. I will be signing up for that today.
Sounds great. All right. Sounds great.
I love it. So Amy, before I let you go, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think it's important for people to know?
Sure. I think sometimes when people look at our mission, which is to eradicate poverty, they think of that as this big and insurmountable problem, and they get kind of overwhelmed by it. Yeah. And I would encourage folks to say, being a part of that solution doesn't mean that tomorrow the problem will be solved, but without your contribution and our collective contribution, it won't even be solved the tomorrow after tomorrow. And so really trying to allow each of us to say, excuse me, we can be part of the solution. We should be part of the solution. And frankly, it's the right thing to do because our neighbors who don't live very far from where we may live may be struggling in ways that we're not aware of. And so through our actions, big and small, we can really do something that can make a difference.
So true. I love it. Amy, I'm in awe of what you've done throughout your life, how much you've spent so much of your time and effort helping other people. It really is inspiring to me and so many others. And I want to thank you so much for coming on here and spreading the word about your great organization. I'm going to have to call Rob after this and thank him so much for introducing your organization to us.
Thank him on my behalf too.
Oh, yes, I will. I can't wait to, do more things with you guys in the future and just spread all the word about all the great stuff you're doing. So thank you so much, Amy.
Oh, thank you so much, Jamie.
Of course. All right, everyone. Until next time. If you would like to learn more about our organization, please follow us on Facebook at Truman Charities or Instagram at Jamie_Truman Charities, or check out our website, trumancharities.com. I hope you enjoyed listening and hearing stories of selflessness and caring. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.